I'm here.
Oh, boy, does Sal have a story to tell. Nick, why don't you do just kind of give us a background on how you got to meet Sal, and then Sal will pick up from there and tell us another outrageous story, what's going on in New Jersey.
Right. So, well, I guess that's what you say it if you're from North Jersey, not really South Jersey. Right. But anyway.
I hear you.
So, everybody was really unaware of the inappropriate standards that were set forth through legislation down through the Department of Education. And these standards lower the age of when sex is explained to children, but then also tries to highlight sex for pleasure purposes, not for baby-making purposes. So when you teach sex education, it's important to teach about disease and about how to make babies, not special tips and tricks or, special things that you need to do to make yourself happy. I mean, it's just supposed to be plain vanilla stuff. And then they added in stuff like IVF because they're trying to accommodate special interest groups who maybe can't get pregnant on their own. It's a real problem. But then the biggest problem is that they included gender identity into the sex education. So now you have this whole gender identity theory telling kids that boys can be girls and girls can be boys if they feel like swapping them is just ridiculous. So there's a whole bunch of inappropriate standards within this that are new. It's new. It was passed. It's new. And none of the parents want it. And they want to direct the Board of Education in each town to carry out these specific types of, curriculum for the kids. And Sal is from Garwood. He was the first town to say, no, we're not going to put in these new standards. We're going to keep the old standards for sex education, but we will not add in any new standards because they're inappropriate for the kids. Because the truth is that the Board of Education controls the curriculum, not the state. They can set forth standards, but the Board of Education is the one who decides and votes on the curriculum. And, the state standards make it almost impossible to not approve an inappropriate curriculum. So every Board of Education member in New Jersey is under this conundrum, and Sal's group, Garwood, was the first ones to do it. And right after that, everybody followed, saying that the curriculum is inappropriate. We can't pass these standards. We don't like this for our kids. And then, so right now, Sal's in an interesting predicament after that. So, Sal, why don't you tell them what happened following the Garwood decision that everybody's talking about?
Perfect intro. Thank you. And I just want to be clear that I'm not speaking on behalf of the Garwood Board of Ed. My opinions are my own, and there's my disclaimer. Exactly. So I was the first one to have to draft a resolution to reject those sex standards and guidelines specific to, teaching all these kids all these inappropriate stuff, K through 8, kids as young as 8 years old learning about anal sex and masturbation and oral sex and gender identity stuff, but everything you had just mentioned. And the Garwood Board of Ed followed the resolution, passed it 7-2. And right after that is when the retaliation happened, I allege. The New Jersey School Boards Association and NJEA, put down the hammer. And I allege they said, we got to do something about this. Get rid of Sal. Alienate, isolate, do whatever we can, start dismissing the resolution, because as you said, all the other school districts started following suit and doing the same thing, saying, okay, what the hell's going on here? We don't want to, we shouldn't be teaching our kids this stuff. Parents were upset about it because kids should not be, the classrooms weren't meant for this. Classrooms are supposed to be teaching about math and English and history and science, actual science. So what happened was they started with the false allegations against me to try to get me removed from the Board of Ed. So the very first thing they did, because we're a sending district, our kids go to high school in Clark, and I was elected to sit on that Clark Board of Ed as liaison. They used these false allegations to have me removed from the Clark Board of Ed. So they took action. They took action with false allegations because, as I allege, it was retaliation because you know what? I went against the agenda. I went against them and did something about what their agenda is, coming after our kids. And then their second step. So I responded, and I waited. You have 90 days to respond. So I waited almost the 90 days, and I filed a notice of claim. I said, you know what? You did this illegally. You cannot. You cannot justify your actions. Not only not justify the actions, but the actual removal of me was, I allege, illegally. So their response to my notice of a claim was to actually file a lawsuit against me. The only lawsuit that has been filed was Garwood Board of Ed against Salvatore Piarulli. They filed a lawsuit to have me removed and to pay all sorts of fines. That was thrown out within 4 days by the Chancery judge.
Great.
Because you can't do that. So that was already now 2 attempts to have me thrown out. First the Clark Board of Ed, and now this. And then they filed, and so we also have filed a motion against them, an ethics motion, because what they had done was illegal. And in their response motion, it's to have me removed and everything like that. So this is an ongoing situation. They are using me as an example of what's going to happen. This is the playbook. You know what? You stand up against them, you do something against their agenda, and they're going to come after you. So it's extremely important that I win my case, and I'm asking everyone for help. I have a Give, Send, Go page. It's givesendgo.com/parents project. I need everyone's help because they are going to try to run me into the ground with legal fees and everything possible to make sure that I don't win. I've won already twice, and, you know, all they have to do if they think that they're beating me is just look across the floor at our Board of Ed meetings, because I'm still there. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to keep fighting for our kids. This is too important. If they take me out, they're just using me as an example to start taking everybody out and start winning all these cases, and we'll see more of that nonsense. What happened up in Sparta with their Board of Ed stood firm, where they have, you know, people show up and start trying to glorify the sex standards.
There's activists. Their activists show up.
Exactly.
It's not.
Exactly.
These aren't regular parents. I mean, maybe there's 3 regular parents in the group, but I just want to make everybody understand who's listening that this has to do with a small group of very loud activists. The majority of New Jersey parents do not want this in their schools, and the only way that they can. The only way these activists can prevent this, because they've already got the politicians in their pocket because they had their legislation passed. The only way they can continue to do this is to just be as obnoxious as they can to everyone at all these board meetings. And the thing is that Sal is definitely being targeted because he was the first one to say this, you know, officially, that this is inappropriate. And then everybody said, this is inappropriate, because, you know, when one person says it, it finally comes to light and everybody can join in. But the problem is that these activists are very involved, and parents are less involved because, you know, you got your kids, you know, you're carting them around, you're helping them with homework. You're not thinking about, well, I've got to show up and, you know, counter protest the protest of the activists.
Right. Well, Nick, a lot of times these
Yeah.
agitators are from outside the district. They're just paid political hacks who try to disrupt the meetings and intimidate honest people trying to advocate on behalf of our kids.
That's exactly it. You just nailed it. It's intimidation. It's intimidation and bullying. And what I allege they're trying to do to me is show, okay, if you're going to do this, look at what happened to Sal Piarulli. That's what's going to happen to you if you try to stand up. If you try to stand up and speak up against our agenda, we are going to intimidate you. We're going to bully you. We're going to force you out. We're going to alienate you. We're going to make sure that, you know what, we're going to drive you completely into the ground. So you better do as we say. It's bullying and it's intimidation. At this time when there's so many bullying problems in our schools, look who's doing the actual bullying.
Hey, Sal, I have a question. How do your kids feel about you advocating for them and other students? Because it's got to impact them, obviously.
So I am blessed to have amazing children who don't give a rat's, you know what,
Right.
what people say. They do their own thing, and I know they're proud of myself. They're proud of me. You know, even my ex-wife. You know, we get along, and she's proud of what we're doing, what I've been able to do. My kids, you know, they're proud of me. I'm their dad. They're gonna, you know, stand by me, and I am absolutely, I'm very fortunate to have kids who are just like, you know what, they do their own thing. They have great friends, and they don't talk about it. It's just, you know, they do their thing. They're great kids, and I'm
glad to
lucky
hear
to have
that. Glad to hear that. But Nick, I know that you've taken a lot of rocks and arrows over the last 2 years, and this June is going to be our second anniversary of you coming on the air, you and Kristen, and it's just been amazing. All these guests like Sal, all these other people every week you bring on. It's just amazing, and people are getting it. But there's true heroes like Sal and all these other folks who've come forth who said, that's it, I'm done, I'm sacrificing everything. Just like our founding fathers did to form this country. They left their families, they left their farms, they went to New York first, then they went to Philadelphia, and they came up with a structure and they stuck to it. That very structure that our founding fathers had intended for this country is being eroded by these leftists who integrate our schools and make them socialist schools, not American schools.
You know, they can't get Sal by shutting him down, you know, with the screaming crazy loons at the Board of Ed meeting. So they're going to try to bat him over the head with the legal system. I mean, that's the really sad part about this entire thing. He's just trying to do good things for his children. And all of the board members who we elected in, even in Sparta and many of the others, and you just, it's very tiring because, you know, the people who are on the opposing side are just crazy, because no one should be screaming that they want children to read dirty books in the library and learn about elementary school anal sex in K through 8. Nobody thinks that's a good idea except for the small group of extremists. And then there's a group of people who were moderate who said, oh, this isn't happening. But they don't know until their kid comes home with something, and then they're shocked. And they're like, oh, I didn't know this was happening. We've been sounding the alarm about this for years. It's being talked about for years. People even noticed during COVID how inappropriate some of the conversations were when they were doing the Zoom calls with their kids. And so now some of the parents have awakened, and they're coming to help and fight for all the parents. And, you know, it's just, I mean, I really have to say, I appreciate Sal just standing up for all the kids in New Jersey, because what he's really doing is he's not just standing up for Garwood. He's standing up for everybody. He's standing up for parents. He is standing up and saying, no, this is inappropriate. We need something different for our kids, and no, we're not going to be bullied into sticking our tail between our legs and letting you harm our children in the name of inclusion, diversity, and equity.
Heroes are born every day, and Sal's one of them. Hey, Sal, how can the folks reach you in case they want to contribute?
So everyone, please go to givesendgo.com/parents project. PARENTS project.
That sounds great.
Any little help we can get. Everything Nikki said is absolutely correct. And what they're doing is they're coming after us on the taxpayers' dime. Remember, these are taxpayers who are having to pay for any legal actions that are coming in place. So, you know, the Garwood Board of Ed sued me. The taxpayers have to pay for that. Not,
that's crazy.
You know, it's they don't seem to understand what parents actually want and what they want for their children. They're going to shove this stuff in, whether we like it or not. I remember back in, I think it was October, the Murphy administration came down and said, hey, we're going to start fining you if you don't start following the sex ed guidelines. And, you know, these threats are going to happen, but these aren't threats against me. These are threats against, you know, our students, our kids, and our teachers who are being forced into these situations.
You're right. Hey,
Sal, the teachers are really uncomfortable with this. I mean, and they are really in a bind, because you really have to do what your employer tells you. If they give you a paycheck, then you have to do it. And did you notice that there is a huge teacher shortage? It's not because there is actually a shortage of teachers. No one wants to go in and participate in this nonsense in the school. I've been told by multiple teachers who retired early that they just can't do it.
It's a shame.
Too awful.
They're afraid of the retribution.
It conflicts with their moral center, and they just can't do this stuff anymore.
Hey, Nick, listen, I got another.
Substitute teacher shortages. And last year, you saw superintendents just retire left and right across the state.
Yep, same with cops, too. Nick, where can people reach you? I have a call calling on hold. So where can they reach you?
The NewJerseyProject.org, and you can join our newsletter there. I'm going to be posting some stuff about Sal soon on all our social medias. You can look for the New Jersey Project or just New Jersey Project everywhere over Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and soon we'll be writing a full story about, we did write a full story about Sal, but we will write another full story explaining the progress of what he's going through and share his donation page.
That's great. So, Sal and Nikki, as always, I appreciate what you're doing.